side, ripping the body, ripping upstairs, and he has a chin for days, chin for days. That forehead is always in somebody's chest. He's one of those type of guys. So I got Shawn Porter tonight. Upset.
All right. I'm going to take – so I'm going the other way. So one of us is going to be really wrong after this. But I like the upset pick just because Bud Crawford at 147 he's fought some good fighters at this point, but not this.
Nothing even close.
I believe this is from a physical standpoint. Shawn Porter's not the best boxer that Bud Crawford's faced, but from a physical standpoint, definitely the best athlete he's been in there against. And it's going to be a phone booth fight in his grill. Now, when you're the better boxer, you can dictate things a lot more in terms of how the fight's going to go. Earl Spence decided he was comfortable fighting in a phone booth. He was comfortable with Shawn Porter. He wanted to kind of show that machismo, and it worked out in his favor. I believe Bud Crawford chasing that Spence fight and trying to really reestablish himself as at one point after Lomachenko, especially after Lomachenko lost to Teofimo, it was like, oh yeah, Bud definitely is pound for pound. And I feel like Canelo's kind of taken that.
Yeah.
I feel like Bud needs this, and he needs to be explosive in a stoppage. I'm picking Bud by stoppage only because Shawn Porter is going to give him that opportunity. There's no excuses. Shawn Porter does not fight off his back foot. As Kieran said, he is going to come forward. One of two things is going to happen, right? Either he's going to get called out on the mic and Kieran's going to be right and somebody's going to make a lot of money on BUSR, or Bud will have an opportunity to show how special he is and at least make people have that conversation for who's pound for pound best in the world. I'm going to go Bud Crawford by stoppage in between rounds 8 and 10. That's where I feel comfortable going just with his skill set. So, guys, we'll see. Kieran, we'll be back on to talk about it. Real. Hey, guys, Steven here, Fanatic Perspective. Got Kieran in the building. Man of many talents. Kieran, what's good, brother? Happy fight night.
It was a very happy fight night. Your prediction, I got to give it to you, was spot on. I mean, just spot. I think you said rounds 8 through 10. And it got stopped in the 10th. Wow, that was spot on. I was going upset early on. I was looking pretty good, But Terrence Crawford, the adjustments, the accuracy. Oh my God, the accuracy, the counters, the footwork, everything was there. Man, he looked good tonight. He looked really good tonight.
Well, Kieran, I'll tell you this. I went on my sponsor's website, BUSR.com, and I did put some money down before the fight. I laid a couple bets down using BUSR.com/fanatic. And if you guys sign up, because I know a lot of people, again, betting Cowboys Chiefs tomorrow, some other games, you want to parlay that in there. Sports 100 FP, use that for the free play bonus. But I went on BUSR and I made a bet on round 8 for knockout, and then I made an overall knockout bet on Terrence Crawford. I was killing myself because I wanted to do a round 10, and then I was like, but in terms of my official prediction that we did together before the fight, you are right. I did say rounds 8 through 10. So if you were listening and you decided to go on BUSR, you could have made some money with us tonight. But
you could have hit.
Because I think that was
I know you were excited during round 8 too. Oh
What'd you say?
God, I know you were excited during round 8 too, because that's when the action started turning up. They started going at it. Oh my goodness! I wish I would have known that beforehand. I'd have texted you through it and be like, "Oh, I know you was nervous."
Dude, round 8 is actually when Bud made a series of adjustments throughout this fight, and that's one of the reasons I think in our prep was, hey, the layers that he has as a fighter. There's a reason why he's in the pound for pound conversations, number one, and has quite frankly been there since he's come up to 147. He has stopped every fighter he's fought. Last person to go to distance was Postal, I think, when he was at 140, if I'm not mistaken.
It was either 140 or 135. Yes.
Yeah, 140 or 135, right? So since then, we're talking about the last 5 years, nobody's gone a distance with Terrence Crawford. And he's gotten people up out of there in a myriad of ways. And I knew, again, with the opponent, that he's fighting in Sean Porter, and Crawford said this after the fight in his post-fight. Styles make fights. You hear that all the time in boxing, and that's really across the board in sports. But specifically for tonight, the manner in which Sean Porter fights, the risk he takes, and ultimately the mistakes that he makes. I was tweeting. I said, hey, uppercut opportunities are there. Counter opportunities are there. He's putting his head down when he charges in. This is what you said, right?
Yep.
He puts his head on your chest.
He puts his head in there. You see headbutts with Sean Porter, it seems like every championship fight he's in. There's going to be a headbutt. There's going to be some blood drawn. Sean Porter likes getting in everybody's chest. And to be fair, this was a perfect blend of styles because not only is Porter a risk taker whenever he's moving forward, so is Terrence Crawford. Mm-hmm. Terrence Crawford will open himself up to eat a big one just to deliver his. But he has such an understanding of range, such a beautiful understanding of range of footwork, and just being slightly out of the way, being slightly this way, slightly that way, circling out and creating a shot. I mean, the shot that he dropped Porter on the second time, whenever he knocked him down, that right hand after he went for the uppercut that was there again, it was there again, missed it, but then he follows it up like. Same combination, but then he follows it up. The angles that he can take to deliver power punches is special. That's once in a generation. Like everybody can switch angles and deliver shots. Like you see Lomachenko, he'll switch off on an angle, slip, and then hit you with something like a 3-4 punch combination. And some of these shots are like, oh wow, how did he even deliver that? Terrence Crawford will finish a 4-punch combination and deliver his lead hand with power, and it's crazy to see. He's so sneaky, he's so good, and he's so technical. I might be putting him up there at pound for pound number one. I might be.
This was impressive from a standpoint of, and we're gonna get to Sean Porter's father here, Kenny Porter, in a second, because that immediately became the story after the fight, after a very, very good fight. And Errol Spence, who was there watching, and Terrence Crawford says, Errol never comes to my fight, so I wonder what he's doing here tonight. Blah, blah, blah. But the process in which Crawford goes through, that first round, I thought Sean Porter did an excellent job. Apply pressure. Round 2, which was, kind of controversial. I think you had the card scores where we were before the stoppage.
Yeah, the card scores before the stoppage. It was 86-85. Crawford was up on 2 of them, and then 87-84. Crawford was up on the other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the judges were on point there. We know, if Kenny Porter doesn't step in after that second one, he's gonna get like a 10-7 round.
Yeah.
The whole fight's blown open. So at that point, it's close fight going into the 10th round. However, the margin, because I think I haven't looked at the cards yet. Yeah.
I haven't knockdowns in round 10, up a round on 2 scorecards and up 3 rounds on the other one. It was over. It was over after that round.
It was going to be over, and I think all the rounds that Porter had piled up and some of that margin was already gone.
Yeah.
Was already gone. And you saw it in round 8, the beginning of round 8, Terrence Crawford comes out and just, immediately starts putting on pressure. I think at that point, he realized what his range was, made a couple slight adjustments, was switching in and out of the southpaw stance. And you said it to me before we started recording, just went to work with his jab, figuring everything out with his jab, let his jab take him where the fight needs to go. Sean Porter, I've never seen Sean Porter pause as much as
never as much as he did today. Terrence Crawford was walking him down. You never see Sean Porter on the back foot like that. Crawford's ability to dictate the pace tonight, exceptional, especially against a guy like Sean Porter, where that's his whole thing, disrupting the pace. He even said it afterwards. He said, well, my thing was I wanted to control the pace and where the fight went, and he did a great job because he controlled where the pace of the fight and where it went everywhere. Like, watching Sean Porter have to actually technically box, mind-blowing, especially after seeing him fight a Spence. After seeing him fight Spence, where it's just a dog fight in the pocket, the entire fight. Yeah, Terrence Crawford, like I said, switching off of those angles, creating space, using his jab, and then the craziest thing to me was him just turning him around and then walking him down. Because this is a guy in Terrence Crawford that came up from 135 to 140, now to 147. He was physically moving Sean Porter around, bullying him. You even saw
Didn't
after one of those
seem like
rounds,
a guy
he was,
that moved up.
yeah,
Seemed
did
very
not seem like the
comfortable.
guy that moved up. He seemed like the natural welterweight tonight, which I think is a big thing for him moving forward. Because who's to say that guy can't go and beat everybody at 154?
Well,
I'm not going to sit here
today.
and say
He did mention 154 as well.
Mm.
And that, it's very interesting, especially when you think of, some of the names that are at that weight class, right? So
Jermell Charlo, Errol Spence. I felt like Errol Spence might go up to that weight class now. I don't know. He seems ready for all of it. Terrence Crawford, exceptional. And honestly, the physical size and pressure that he put on Sean Porter tonight, never seen it before. Never seen it before.
Against a true welterweight.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing too. When you start talking about legacy and a guy who did what he did at lightweight, moving up, right? And that's where you start to separate yourself and put yourself in a conversation with the Manny Pacquiaos, with the Floyd Mayweathers, who are multi-division champions, right? And so that's right now all Errol Spence has, and no disrespect to Earl, I'm an Errol Spence guy. DeSoto, all the whole Texas thing. I love Errol Spence. I've been beating Errol Spence drum since he was having fights in San Antonio. But here's the thing. All you got is 147, brother.
Yeah.
That's all you got.
He's a natural welterweight through and through. He said that. He said he wants to move up.
He's 33? How old is he now? How old is Errol?
I think he's a little younger than that. He might be 32.
He's 32? I'll fact check that while you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I'm checking it right now. He's 31. 31. So yeah, he's a little bit younger.
Okay, but he's 31. My bad.
Yeah. I just think, man, when you start getting into the conversation of Bud versus Errol, I think pre-car accident, I'd favor Errol Spence in that fight. Afterwards, I think he got his motivation back, but I'm not sure what he is after that. Whenever you take a big blow like that, it was bad, man. There's a really bad car accident that Errol Spence got in. Terrence Crawford coming up, though, looking incredibly physically imposing, which is something that I never would have expected. But also, you got to look at this. This fight needs to be made now. These guys aren't getting any younger now.
Right.
Like Terrence Crawford is 34 years old. This fight needs to happen now. There's no excuses at this point. This fight has to happen and soon. Man, when I'm looking at it though, Errol Spence been a career welterweight, faced some tough challenges in Sean Porter, faced a tough challenge in Kell Brook. Remember, he took the belt off of Kell Brook back in the day. I mean, Kell Brook, by all means, before fighting Triple G, world-class fighter, dominated Sean Porter, beat him, straight up beat him. That was up until today. That was Sean Porter's least competitive fight. Yeah. I don't know. When I see Errol Spence, I love the dude. You know what I mean? I love me some Errol Spence. And it really pains me to say this, but I think Bud beats him at this point. At this point in time, I just think Bud beats him. He's the man right now at 147. He is. And I gotta see it. But it needs to happen. The only fight that can happen right now that I would say, okay, that's acceptable for me to wait on Crawford and Spence is if Crawford and Josh Taylor happened. Undisputed champion, past two undisputed champions at 140, unprecedented, never happened in boxing ever before.
Right.
I would love to see that happen. I would love to see that happen. Would I still be upset? Absolutely. Because this is the problem with boxing. Fights need to happen. Fights need to happen. You got to put those.
This is why I was rooting for Bud tonight. And I like both fighters. I really like Sean Porter. He's good for. He's always been good for boxing. That's the guy. And I hate doing this, but when you go to fight parties and a lot of people don't watch boxing on a regular basis, sometimes certain fighters can be a buzzkill for them, even though we're enjoying the sweet science and we're seeing the nuance. Some people don't. Well, you're always going to be safe when Sean Porter is a part of the main event because he's going to force you to fight in a certain manner with how aggressive he is and the mistakes he makes. But people don't see that, right? And so even when Terrence Crawford started winning rounds tonight, where I was, people were like, "Oh, look at Sean Porter." And yeah, Sean Porter landed some shots to the body. Yeah, but I'm like, yo, he's losing this fight. Like,
Yeah.
don't get it twisted, right?
As soon as Terrence Crawford gets a little bit of momentum, it's an avalanche. It's just going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. And it comes with power and precision, timing, speed, defense. Like it's almost as if the more shots he takes, the more aggressive he gets, the more open he gets. Like I've never seen a fighter in my time eat a big shot and then get more loose, like be more open defensively. You know what I mean? Like he'll open himself up. I even tweeted this during the fight. I've never seen a fighter consistently open themselves up to as many shots as Terrence Crawford does just to deliver his ever before. Terrence Crawford will straight up have his hands down, leaning back. I mean, you saw even the uppercut tonight. He just understands range so well. That uppercut that he timed on Sean Porter just barely leans out of it. He's reading a 3-punch combination and then throwing an uppercut behind it. That's next level.
Hey, you know, speaking of styles make fights, I wish we would have gotten the Crawford Pacquiao fight that we never seem to get, because I think
he was on Bob Arum's side, and then he ended up switching over to PBC.
Right, he switched over to PBC, but like, you know, and Al Heyman and those guys. But I'm like, you know, just from a stylistic standpoint, I think it would be interesting. I want to tie a bow on Porter, and then I want to move on to Spence Crawford, because I'm heading where you're heading.
Yeah.
Sean Porter, I think he retired after the fight. I mean, we started talking here, so I don't know. I'm seeing on Twitter that he retired. But that would be the story, but the story is his father.
Yeah.
Who you could tell body language wise totally caught Sean Porter off guard. He's asked, you know, just pretty straightforward question. How'd your son do tonight, and why'd you stop the fight? Basically, why'd you stop the fight?
Yeah.
And my man went rogue, bruh. Are you kidding me?
Unbelievable. I cannot believe
the fight because he's not prepared. He didn't.
Yeah.
What?
That seems like you had something to prove to him. Not, okay, I stopped the fight because he started eating more shots. You know, the defense wasn't there like we wanted it to be. He wasn't doing what I asked him. Fine.
Couldn't protect himself.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you can even say he wasn't doing what I asked him to do. But to sit there and be like, well, the reason why I stopped it is because he prepared like shit. Like, what?
That's wild.
This is a grown man. Like, you're his father. This is a grown man we talking about right now. Like he didn't prepare.
Guy who's a champion, man.
Yeah, dude that just farted his heart out in a world championship fight, took rounds off a world champion in a sold out arena, and you're gonna sit there after the fight and say, well, I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. I'll be at his house tomorrow morning for breakfast. I was like, what? And first of all, I want to know what your opinion on the stoppage was, because for me, I can see why you would stop the fight at that time, because I don't think it was going to get any better for Sean Porter. But
I don't think it was going to get any better.
Yeah,
I don't think it was going to get any better. But I didn't feel like Sean was really like. Sean was clearly hurt, but I didn't think he was in a position where he couldn't continue. I thought Sean, on top of being hurt, was frustrated, right? Especially that second shot that he got caught with. When you see him pounding the canvas and everything, and he's visibly frustrated. And it's probably one of those gotcha things where his dad, where they're going through their film study and they're going through their breakdowns, he's like, hey, watch that check hook or whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, I got it. You know, when you not, and then something happens.
Like, yeah, I got it, coach. I got it.
And part of your frustration is like, damn it, he did tell me to watch out for that, and I should have listened. But does that warrant me not being able to compete anymore or try to fix it? Now, it's always weird when you have a parent or uncle or somebody who's family in there, because we've seen some situations before, right? Where it's like, hey, I love you, I'm gonna step in. This didn't seem like that. This seemed like a pre-existing almost dispute or difference in game plan that ended up rearing itself.
The fact that that's what was said afterwards seemed spiteful. And there's always a gray area, especially whenever we're talking about boxing and stoppages, because there is the factor like, okay, these guys are in there getting CTE. But
and it's heat of the
man,
moment for everybody, his
exactly.
father included. It's heat of the moment. You know, does he say that 30 minutes after the fight is over? Probably not.
Mm,
But when you're sticking a microphone and camera in somebody's face right as that's happening, I mean, Sean Porter was like, we didn't discuss that, you know, because I know like this even goes back to the Wilder fights. It's like, you know, he fires his trainer in the second Fury fight or after the second Fury fight because he's like, you know, I didn't tell him to do all that, blah, blah, blah. Like, we know there's always protocol there with the fighters and their trainers of, hey, you get into a certain situation, bro, I'm stepping in. Because at the end of the day, it's my credibility on the line, too, to protect you.
mm,
We get all that. But I don't know, man. It just seemed like there was something else going on there. I agree with you. That fight was over.
mm.
That fight was over.
That's
Even
why
if
I
he
feel
somehow
weird about it.
miraculously shows all his heart and gets to the cards, he would have got blasted on the cards.
Mm.
I mean,
That's why I feel a little bit weird about it. It's just like if it was me, I would have been upset that my trainer stopped it right there. But at the same time, nobody knows you better in that situation than your father / trainer, you know? So that's between them. I just felt like he failed to prepare. I mean, if it's your 17-year-old son and you're trying to teach him a lesson, completely understand. You know what I mean? Be hard on him. But in front of everybody, 34-year-old
even if
man,
that's how you really feel, too.
yeah. Yeah, I felt like that could have you could have kept that to yourself. You could have kept that. You really could have kept that to
Or
yourself,
just
Kenny.
disclose that in private, you know?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
hey, I said what
The
I said
reason I stopped
immediately.
this is
Yeah,
because I felt like you failed to prepare. You didn't prepare to your best ability. But
yeah.
I gotta admit though, it was pretty funny watching Sean Porter just sit there like kid in trouble, just while his dad scolding him. He's 34 years old, just sitting there
Is he still
getting his
talking?
dad scolding him. It was man.
Yeah. Well, if that was the last we've seen of Sean Porter,
Mm.
thank you,
Yes, he
brother.
did announce
You
his retirement during the post-fight press conference. So
he did.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, he's been one of the great athletes to watch. Super, you know, I've always enjoyed just the athleticism he brings to the ring, the heart. Never seems to run out of gas. He's a true serum fighter, 1,000% all day long. He's going to be in your grill, and if you don't have your A game, you will get beat
mhm.
straight up, right?
He's a tough
So,
out.
Sean Porter, salute, brother.
Yeah.
Salute. Last thing we want to touch on though is Spence, right? Because that's what this is. You know, it's a means to an end, right? And
Mhm.
that end, especially at 147 where everything is, because I think the other guys are just either too young or off in the distance to where you're not qualified to be at this level of conversation anymore,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. I love me
It,
some Boots Ennis, but not there yet.
no,
Mm.
Terrence Crawford's a free agent now. I believe this is his last fight under top ranked Bob Arum's contract. Now he
Mhm.
can obviously resign and do all that, but he is currently a free agent. Errol Spence over there at the PBC. There's no excuse anymore.
Mm-mm.
There's no excuse. Now, I thought Errol Spence looked as good as he possibly could have looked in the Danny Garcia fight, coming off of what he came from. Danny
Mm.
Garcia is no slouch whatsoever. I
Mm-mm.
know he's caught some L's recently, and a lot of people don't like his father.
Yeah.
That stuff aside, for Spence to look the way he looked back, I think in December, that's as good as he possibly could have looked. He didn't get to have his showcase fight and his the money fight against Pacquiao, which would have also been an explosive matchup. He didn't
Mm.
get that opportunity. Ugas has now diverted that whole situation.
Yeah.
So
I'm hoping that we don't get this Spence Ugas matchup that the PBC is gonna want to put on. They are, which I mean, from a
that's
business
frustrating.
perspective, yes, you want to make sure that all your cards are aligned in house, but it's if
It's not
Spence
even
uses that
disrespect
as
to
a
Ugas
warm up
either.
fight, I can understand. If he uses that as a warm up, say, okay, I've been out of the ring. I had an eye injury that I just had to sit out from. I've been out a year. Let me take this fight and then we'll do Bud Crawford next. Completely understand. but make sure that's contractually agreed to beforehand, because I don't want any funny business at this point. Like I'm tired of it. At one point, you got Crawford over on the top ranked side fighting Amir Khan and Jeff Horn for the title. You know what I mean? Like just Mean Machine. Let's get this dude some fights. Let's get this dude some fights. Terrence Crawford, I mean, hell, get him. He needs to be fighting these PBC welterweights, it seems. So I'm happy that he's on the right side of the street now, but the fights need to happen. They need to.
For the money. For the sake of the money.
Yeah. It makes the most sense.
It
Not
makes
just for
the
legacy.
most sense.
It's gonna do the most
promote
numbers.
the hell out of that fight. It's your two. It's always been them. It's always been them. At the end of the day, you want to throw Sean Porter out there. You want to throw One Time out there. All these guys. At the end of the day, I knew if things continued the way they went, that was the path we're headed down. Let's get it booked.
Yeah.
Let's get it booked. Now
we've known this since Terrence Crawford moved up from 140. We've known that this was the fight to make. That's been years now. Now.
And I don't want to see Crawford just go off. I know he said, he's older and all that type of stuff. So it's sometimes that you're like, bump it. I don't have to train this hard. I'll move up and wait and go to. I don't want to see him go to 154 yet either. No, I don't want to see that.
Unfinished business.
Unfinished business. Exactly. Let's do this. Is what the fans want. We are talking as fans, and we want Crawford Spence. I think everybody that comments on this video, everybody that sees us talking right now, is thinking the same way. There's no excuses anymore.
No. Now here's the question: though, playing devil's advocate, do you want Spence to face you guys so that way it can be an undisputed title fight between the two?
I think to what you said earlier, it needs to be contractually agreed upon. I think Spence. So what you don't want to happen is something like an Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury scenario where the fighter loses. One of the fighter loses, and now everything's screwed up. Like Joshua and Fury, at some point will eventually box each other in the heavyweight division. It will never be as big as it could have been if they fought this past year, within the past year and a half, right? Because the sheen is off of Anthony Joshua.
It's going to be a title defense for Tyson Fury at this point.
Yeah,
but it's not. I don't see Anthony Joshua beating Usyk either. Like they had the chance to make these fights, but for whatever reason, Eddie Hearn would rather have Anthony Joshua facing every 40-year-old from Eastern Europe. It seems.
Now, do I think that Errol Spence could get caught the way, and when I say get caught, I'm talking about just taking an L, the way Joshua took an L to Usyk or even Big Boy, what's his name?
Andy Ruiz.
No. And Ugas is a good, good Cuban style boxer.
Yeah. But
with proper preparation, proper camp, Spence will be okay in that fight. Those are tough guys, tough codes to crack.
We would much rather see him fight Crawford right now, though. That's the thing. Or like I think, right, you can just fight Crawford next, like everybody wants you to. That's
no excuses.
Yeah, it's all up in the air. Like, of course, I would love to see. I mean, it's boxing. I would love to see Josh Taylor versus Terrence Crawford and Ugas versus Spence. I would love to see.
You know what bothers me is these promoters always use the same excuse. Well, let's wait a little bit. Let's build it up. Let's get one more fight in there and build it up and build it up and build it up. And
this is where you're going to see it, though. This is where you're going to see it. This is where you're going to see, okay, do they want to make the biggest fight possible, or do they want to have their own promotional politics on them? Because there's two things that are going to happen. Either you're going to see Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence get in there and fight next, like it should, or you're going to see Terrence Crawford stay in-house and fight Josh Taylor in-house. They can make money for themselves doing that. And Ugas and Spence fight in-house because they can make money off of that. And they better hope if they do something like that, that Taylor and Ugas don't win. Because you screw everything up. This is the game you play with boxing. You're taking risk every single time you put it out there. And it's It's annoying because it ruins good things. We could have had Pacquiao versus Mayweather way before it happened. And after that, Pacquiao had 2 losses. 2 losses in between the time that they could have made that fight happen. It just, I don't know.
It's really frustrating. I will say this though. I do think that Crawford has as good an argument as anybody in the world, including Canelo for pound number 1.
Mm.
My challenge, and this is not something you can change, and this is the problem with Bud. Bud doesn't have that star quality when he gets on the microphone. Like even he's almost too Nebraska, too humble. He's too real, right? And so that was his opportunity to directly attack Earl Spence.
Exactly.
Right? And like almost put it in a situation where show us how much you want that fight. And I know Bud wants that fight. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's afraid of Earl Spence.
Tell everybody
Earl Spence
how
is
much
afraid
you
of
want
Bud Crawford. But back in the day, if you put a Sugar Ray Leonard or a Tommy Hitman Hearns on the mic after the fight, and they're like, "Yo, I want Marvelous Marvin Hagler tonight," right? Would make it explicitly clear. Even back when I was younger, the De La Hoya and Tito Trinidad and Sugar Shane Mosley days, they would call people out directly. Like you get Bud, and Bud gives us the practical answer. He's like, well, I could go to 154. I mean, Spence doesn't come to my fights. Now he's here. I guess he wants to fight. Let's do that. I'd love to fight Spence.
Even when they said, well, who do you want next? He's like, well, you know who I want. No. Bring Errol Spence out here. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't get it. I don't get it, man. Like I want that Antonio Tarver. Like, no excuses tonight, Roy. I want that type of mentality out here. You know what I mean?
Right. That's how you sell a fight.
Exactly. Like I want that. It's just, man, when I still think Bud can do it though. He can become this huge draw because he does it in the ring. He does it in the ring. He's amazing. He's a technician and he puts people away.
He's gonna need somebody else on the other end talking. You can't have a super fight with 2 people who don't talk. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
You need one. That's why Mayweather is still pay-per-view draws, till this day. That is part of the sport. And if Bud doesn't want to talk, that's fine. There's been other all-time greats who don't talk, but they always got in there with somebody who either was a talker or was just a legit bad dude, right? Just like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I ain't messing with him, right? Yeah. Like a Roberto Duran. Like he didn't say much, but it was like, I want to see if Bray's gonna survive this. That's what they need.
Yeah.
Because Crawford Spence sells to every boxing fan. Yes. And it will sell okay. But if they're going to keep playing the game they are, especially Bud, where he just doesn't talk, you're going to have trouble selling the fight.
Exactly. I mean, hey, they killed Canelo's pay-per-view numbers with the zone. When he went over to the zone, like all the pay-per-view numbers went down. So guess what he did? Learned English. And now he's talking. And honestly, if you've heard Canelo talk, very entertaining individual to listen to. And I agree, you need that. When you build up Fury and Wilder because they're 2 brash personalities that like to go out there and say that they're going to do it.
Oh, yeah, both of them.
You know what I mean?
Both of them.
Yeah.
But
it seems like Bud has to get into that mode.
Into the sport. Right? Because people love listening to Tyson Fury. People were like, this guy Wilder is ridiculous. Why is he saying these things?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to die in the ring.
I want to catch a body in the ring. Like
I'm going to catch a body in the ring tonight. Right? Bud gets on First Take. He's like, yeah, Stephen A., I'm going to go in there,
It's always like, well, you know who I want to fight. I want to fight Errol, It's not like come on, man. Like be more outspoken. Like
you gotta be a salesman.
This is the thing though. You look at the way he fights, he has superstar written all over him. He's a dog with a mean streak in there. He just doesn't sell it. Doesn't sell it. Won't talk. Same thing with Errol Spence though too. Errol Spence isn't nearly as exciting boxing wise as because he's a technician as Bud Crawford.
Nope.
But man, you gotta sell it. You gotta go out there and talk. You gotta go out there and sell it. And I think that might be a reason why we've seen the delay. That might be a hot take, but I think that might be a reason why we've seen the delay in making these big fights because he's not must-see television. You know what I mean? Like
I think you're onto something.
I don't know. He's got to be.
I think you're onto something.
Yeah. Maybe that's why we haven't seen it because Bud Crawford's not talking enough crap. You got to. It's the fight game. It's more than anything, this is entertainment. And that's one thing that I think a lot of people need to realize. Whenever you're prize fighting, it's just as much sport as it is entertainment. At the end of the day, because you can be the most technical, most gifted, most amazing fighter. You can be a chocolatito and have a 48-0 record. And yet whenever you lose, it's not like everybody really cares because nobody knows what your personality is. The fight game is so deeply embedded in who these fighters are, their personalities, their stories. Why do you think Conor McGregor's the biggest guy in the fight game right now? Because he's brash. He talks a bunch of crap. You know what I mean? Like, why do you think Jake Paul is probably the biggest boxer right now? Because everybody knows him. You got to be, as much as you might hate it, you got to do it. You got to back it up. You got to back up your
sports movies or boxing movies, right? That tale of the underdog, that tale of the fighter who's living a tough life or came from a tough beginning, right? Like all of those things. I mean, De La Hoya, his story and how he came up, but there's star qualities, and this is something these younger brothers out here. I agree with how Tank is being handled, Tank Davis, in terms of how Floyd's managing his career. But we saw the younger brother in the ring, Shakur Stevenson, who got in there in Bud's corner right after the fight, who should be the next superstar, right?
Yep.
But like, learn.
I think he's more down to talk some crap though. He loves talking some crap. Shakur Stevenson loves talking some crap. I think he has to get the names though.
The names.
That's the thing. He has to get the names on his resume. He has to compete with some of these guys. He needs to go up to 135 and fight some of these lightweights, 130, fight some of those guys. He has to get the names on his resume first, but I think he's more than willing to talk some crap. Shakur Stevenson.
Good.
Yeah.
You need to. You either need to talk or you need to be a killer.
Exactly.
You can't be the technical guy who doesn't say anything. It's very difficult to sell fights.
It's tough.
But overall, good night for boxing, I'd say. Very, very good night for boxing.
Great night. Everybody's talking about it. Yes. Everybody's talking about it because and the reason why everybody's talking about it is Errol and Terrence Crawford now have another common opponent, one that pushed Errol, one that Errol had a split decision with after getting a knockdown, and now Terrence Crawford's out here beating him, stopping him for the first time in his career. So now everybody's forced to have that conversation. Oh, Errol didn't look as impressive as Terrence did. I don't know. What is this going to be? You know what I mean? My question to you, though, you got to take a side. No sitting on the fence with this one, Steve. Who is your number one pound-for-pound boxer in the world right now? This might be a little bit unfair because it's the night of the fight. So recency bias is at play, but
well, Canelo fought last weekend.
Against Caleb Plant.
I'm actually gonna go Bud Crawford, pound for pound number one. Reason being, I haven't seen any holes, and I think the competition he's fought, and I know Canelo hasn't fought outright bums. And I actually like Caleb Plant's game plan, all things considered.
Caleb Plant, boxed his tail off.
Man. I like Caleb Plant.
Caleb Plant went out there and tried. Like he was trying to win it. You see a lot of guys get these big fights and they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm getting a $5 million check. All I got to do is be somewhat competitive." Okay.
I've seen Canelo have some struggles that it's just he hasn't fought the right fighter to exploit those things, and that's coming off of the Triple G stuff. Whereas Bud has figured out everybody. It's been more dominant to me. I know people are going to talk about Canelo wants to go to cruiserweight and he's jumping more weight classes, Steve. Miss me with that when it comes to what Bud's doing. So right now, I have Bud number one. The only problem is Bud doesn't sell himself the way Canelo does. But if we're talking strictly in the ring, I don't have to think as hard about that. Me personally, I would have Terrence Crawford pound for pound #1 fighter in the world. That's why I was so confident he would get a stoppage tonight.
Yeah.
That's how strongly I feel about what he's capable of and how quickly he can process information with his tools, because he has almost unlimited tools. The only thing I would say he maybe doesn't have is like one punch, oh my God, power, but he has more than enough power to get you up out of there, as we've seen over the last 5 years. So what else is he missing? I don't see it.
Yeah. I completely agree, because if you look at their resume entirely, Bud Crawford hasn't had a fight that you can say, oh, it could have gone both ways. Hasn't had that yet.
No draws.
No L's, no draws, none of that. And I'm not going to be the one that sits here and holds a loss that 23-year-old Canelo Alvarez had against the greatest boxer of all time.
Like, we're talking about right now.
Exactly. Yeah, we're talking about right now. And I don't think that should be an indictment on Canelo's legacy after he retires either. That he's a 23-year-old kid going against the most technical boxer I think we've ever seen. Like,
took a big risk.
Exactly. Took a huge risk. But when I look at Canelo's resume, I think beating guys at light heavyweight like Sergey Kovalev, really impressive. Granted, the blueprint was set. And he was coming off. Though? No, absolutely not. Because the blueprint was set by Andre Ward, attack the body, then the head will open up, and then he got knocked out by Eleider Alvarez. But yeah, I guess when you really look at it, Canelo's world titles in the higher weight classes. I mean, at 168, he faced Rocky Fielding. Then he faced Callum Smith. I think Callum Smith. Yeah.
Callum Smith. Some of those people are tomato cans, bro.
Yeah. I don't think Callum Smith is tomato can, but I'll sit here.
I'm not talking about Smith.
I'm
talking about some of these other.
I'll sit here and say this with my whole chest. Any British world champion not named Tyson Fury, not worth the shit. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you guys. If it's not, I guess Josh Taylor too. Josh Taylor's not Billy Joe Saunders. I think he's probably up there, upper echelon. But when it comes down to them fighting an elite American at whatever weight class it is, they lose 9 times out of 10. Let's be honest. They normally lose. And I'm not saying, like, I'm not trying to sit here and diss, though, because Josh Taylor, amazing, super technical. I enjoy watching him fight. Callum Smith, I think he did well, but then you're fighting a Canelo Alvarez. But it seems like he has 2 fights against legitimate opponents and then fights a tomato can. And then 2 fights against legitimate opponents and then fights a tomato can. And normally these tomato cans are for world titles. Like, that's another thing too shady about Canelo. He has the WBC in his pocket. If you disagree, you haven't been doing the literature. Like, you have not been. This dude, I mean, there is an undisputed cruiserweight champion right now. They just finished the tournament. Like, after Usyk went up, they just finished it. And now they're just like, well, this guy Makabu from Africa is the cruiserweight world champion, and that's what they're gonna fight for. I'm like,
that's why Canelo wants.
I can't forget.
Yeah. It's like a cheap resume builder.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like Rocky Fielding, Avni Ildrum. I mean, he literally got in a huge argument with his with his promoter. Like, he left his promoter because they wouldn't let him fight Avni Ildrum. It's like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? But I do appreciate Canelo. I think he's one of the best fighters in the world right now, but also I can't ignore the close fights that he's had, fights that I thought he lost. I thought he lost the first fight against Triple G. I thought that one was clear as day. The second fight against Triple G, I thought was closer. I can understand a draw or a win for Canelo. But man, fights that I can't get out of my head are like the Arislan Lara fight. I thought he straight up lost that fight.
Right.
When I look at the Danny Jacobs fight, I thought that was a really close fight. I thought he did enough to win. That's whenever his defense. Yeah.
A brother, I had a conversation with a brother today. My man Mon out there. Hope you may be watching out there somewhere, but we actually brought up the Jacobs Canelo fight because this was like kind of around the world boxing conversation, and Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
some fights out there, and it wasn't. We're not. Nobody's saying Jacobs won that fight. Canelo won the
No.
fight.
Yeah.
Period. But it's the success that the opponent had against you.
Mm.
And so if we're talking, and this is why I say, like, when we get into like even basketball, right? Like, who's the GOAT? And when we talk about like all these things, it's more than just, oh, he's undefeated or he won. We got to nitpick.
Mm.
And so if I'm comparing Canelo Alvarez, like us bringing up Rocky Fielding or bringing up people that are tomato cans,
Yeah.
that's not to discredit Canelo Alvarez. That's
Mm.
just saying
It's
at
on your
this
resume.
level, pound for pound, number one, I got to nitpick. We got to, because
Yeah.
it's so close.
Yeah.
It's so close.
Yeah. You got to look at the resume. I think he has extremely impressive victories. I think Caleb Plant, his dog, went out there, tried his hardest.
He gets credit for Caleb
Yeah,
Plant.
exactly. But then again, he's sitting here undisputed 168-pound champion of the world. And there's a guy in David Benavidez who they snatched the title off of just to give it to Canelo that has been begging for a fight.
He's
Begging for a fight against him. I mean, like, I think Canelo beats him, but these are things I have to see first, you know? Like, whenever everybody likes to make it like he's just the undisputed king from like 154 all the way up to 168. And I'm sitting here like, there's still guys there that he needs to be. I thought the Billy Joe Saunders win was incredible because I thought he was losing that fight up until then. Actually, I think he was losing that fight up until then.
I think he was losing the fight.
But when I look at Terrence Crawford, I look at this across different weight classes, being undisputed at 140, although competition at 140, not anywhere near close to being elite. If we're being honest, I think.
There.
Yeah, but he got
came around too late.
Yeah.
Garcia. Yeah.
Mikey Garcia came around too late. Then also Mikey Garcia, horrible handling of his career. Horrible. I'm not gonna lie.
They messed it up.
Horrible. 147. Like, what did you see in Errol Spence that made you believe that horrible handling of his career? But when I look at what he's done at 140 and now going up to another weight class and stopping everybody, like stopping everybody at that weight class. And it's if you watched Terrence Crawford as a lightweight, yes, he had pop, but he was not known as this power puncher. And all he's done is getting sharper and better and finishing people. I gotta agree with you, Steven. That was a very long-winded answer to who my number one pound for pound fighter is. But
yeah, we both got number one, Terrence Crawford.
Terrence Crawford's my number one pound for pound.
Pound for pound.
And unfortunately, I think he beats my hometown boy, Errol Spence.
That's a fight where I won't give a prediction till the day of. Only because I will be so in tune with their camps. And just I want to know what camp, like how long camp will be from when they book the fight to when there's fight night and all those type of things. There's so much to it. Then right now, yes, I have Terrence Crawford pound for pound number one. I used to be in your camp of thinking, oh, Earl Spence at some point is just gonna beat him up too much, to just almost overwhelm him.
Yeah.
But now,
boy's
Terrence
big.
Has proven, and he's been proven that 147 has been light work for him so far. Let's be honest. It's been light work for him.
Yeah, and the competition level is only getting harder. He ain't fought anybody at 135 or 140 anywhere near close to Sean Porter tonight. And went out there and dealt with him. Dealt with him. Yeah.
Very impressive. Kieran, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Care Bear Kieran on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I'm trying to build my Twitter audience a little bit. I want people to join my spaces when I gotta just vent about random BS. You know what I mean? Let me talk about my boring life to you people. Also, you can catch me on Jukes on YouTube. Jukes YouTube. Look up Keep It Simple. It's my weekly show. I talk about NFL. We have a Cowboys show as well. I know, Steven, you'll like that. It's called Make It Rain, as in Rain Dakota Prescott, greatest quarterback in the NFC.
Love
East. Yes. So make sure you guys go check that out as well. We're going to be uploading content weekly, daily content now. It's been a grind, but yeah.
Y'all are doing great work over there, man. Thank you for blessing us. I got a celebrity on here from LA to talk boxing with us. I am humbled and honored. Thank you to our sponsor, BUSR, BUSR.com/Fanatic, the official sports book, the official betting partner of Fanatic Perspective. We had a big night tonight, as we did, at least on my end, an official prediction pick Terrence Crawford, Bud Crawford, by stoppage in the later round. So make some money with us. Got a bunch of NFL games going on tomorrow. Sports 100 FP bonus. Take advantage of that. Matching on 100% of all free plays in the first 24 hours. BSR.com/Fanatic. Let's get it. Karen, thank you so much, brother.
No
We will be
problem.
back. We'll have some more boxing content for you guys. I think this was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Hopefully more boxing content. I can scream about Canelo's his resume some more.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Take care.
See you.